Good evening and thank you for joining us on Sunday Interview. I'm your host, Grevasio Zulu. Now, the biggest topic on the Zambian political scene today is inter-party dialogue. But the irony is that while parties have committed themselves to talk, none seems to be ready to walk the talk and get to the dialogue table. Debate is still raging on who should chair or convene the talks between the Commonwealth and the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, ZCID. The ruling party insists the talk should be Zambian-led, while the opposition and some stakeholders insist it should be foreign-led. Is there a solution to this standoff? My guest this evening, Justice Minister, Mr. Lubinda. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
To start with, I want you to reaffirm the position of government, the position of the Patriotic Front. Are you ready to dialogue?
Thank you for asking me to come on your interview, and good evening, viewers. Indeed, the Patriotic Front government and party have always been ready to dialogue. And as we stand now, we're very happy that we've made a lot of progress in arriving at the process for dialogue. All the time we've been talking about talks, dialoguing about dialogue. And I think that now we've gotten to a point where we even know the issues that ought to be brought to the dialogue table. And we have made a lot of progress in that direction. So we are ready. And it is our hope that all the various stakeholders, particularly the political players, will also be as ready and as eager as we are to proceed with dialogue. And the one thing I should make clear from the onset, Mr. Zulu, for the purpose of the viewers, is that for us in government and in the Patriotic Front, dialogue shall not be considered as an event. For us, dialogue is a process. And all the time we've been dialoguing, we've been talking. And all this time we've been talking about talks. But like I said, we've gotten to a point where now we've teased out the various issues that
need to be brought to the table. Now, according to you and according to the Special Assistant to President Lungu is ready to dialogue. We've read in the media and Hakainde Hichilema and his team are ready to dialogue, and other opposition parties are equally ready to dialogue. But why has dialogue delayed? That should be the question, really. Everybody's ready, but nobody's really ready to move. You're ready, and you're announcing. Each one is announcing from their corner that they're ready to dialogue. But why is the process not? Why has it been so slow? Let
me remind the viewers and the citizens at large. President Lungu, as we're back as 2015, he has been saying he was ready to dialogue with anybody and with everybody, and that he wanted people to come up with the issues that they wanted to bring to the dialogue table. And I have to say thank you to the Commonwealth. When the Commonwealth came on the scene, they told us that people wanted to talk, and we said, please go ahead and find out what issues do they want to bring to the table. And they did a tremendous job. They went around and consulted various stakeholders. And as you are well aware, Professor Gambari came to the country on 4 occasions. And on the 4th occasion, he honored me with a visit, like he had done over the previous 3 occasions. In the 4th meeting that I had with him, he indicated to me the issues that had been raised by the various stakeholders. And they are namely constitutional reform, number 1. Item number 2, civility in politics. And that is to do with freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. The 3rd, electoral reforms. 3 issues. And he brought these issues to my attention, as you recall, during his last visit to Zambia, and that I think was November, December. So now we know the issues. And fortunately for us, and I think you recall very clearly, Mr. Zulu, I was on this same program way back in March 2017, when I came and informed the nation through this program that President Edgar Lungu and his cabinet had instructed the Minister of Justice to announce to the public that there was need for us to reform or refine our constitution. And I did that, and I asked all and sundry to make submissions. That's on the constitutional refinement process. The second, the so-called civility in politics. You again recall that again on this same platform, I did announce that I'd asked people through Parliament to make submissions on how to improve the Public Order Act. Now, these were processes that we already started in March of 2017. So when Professor Gambari came in November and told us that these are the issues that people he had met were talking about, these are the issues they wanted to bring to the dialogue table, we were very happy. We said, well, it seems like we are now at the convergence of ideas.
Minister, I did ask you that. You've actually taken us back, that the President was already willing to talk as far back as 2015. This is 2018. There's been no formal dialogue process. The issues are known. So why is this delay? Everyone says they're ready to talk, and you're not talking, but you're ready to talk.
Fortunately,
it had to take Commonwealth to initiate the talks.
No, that's not correct. The Commonwealth did not initiate the talks. That's not true. The Commonwealth
to push the seriousness that we're all seeing now. No, that's also not true. The Commonwealth played an important role of getting the views of the various players on what should be contained in the so-called dialogue. Which Zambians couldn't get?
You may recall, like I said, President Edgar Lungu has always said, please bring forward the issues that you'd like us to discuss. And nobody brought them forward. Nobody. Everybody was just talking at cross purposes. But now that Professor Gambari, a neutral person, met with the various political players, he met with the PF, he met with the UPND, he met with FDD, MMD, faith-based organizations, civil society organizations, and he reduced the issues to only 3 issues. That's when we said, well, now we can go. Now we know what people want to talk about. So it took us this long time. Yes, regrettably. But fortunately, now we know the issues. So now there is nothing that should stop us from making progress.
Some of these issues, well, you may say now you know the issues, but you've known them all along. You complained about them when you were in the opposition.
Yes, we've known them.
Public Order Act.
We've known them as issues that required.
Constitution.
We've known them as issues that required addressing.
And of course, when the Constitution was adopted in Parliament, you knew there was lack of consensus then.
There was consensus. Otherwise, the Constitution...
The opposition were not happy.
The Constitution has been passed. To pass the Constitution, you need 2/3 of Parliament.
You had the numbers.
We had the numbers together with UPND. We couldn't have passed the Constitution without the UPND. We couldn't. Just like the case is now. We cannot possibly pass the Constitution without the 2/3 majority that is required in Parliament.
So where's the arrogance coming from on the part of the ruling party?
We're not arrogant. We're actually extremely humble over this matter. Extremely humble. How many times have I made calls for submissions, Mr. Zulu? How many? In all fairness, the Zambians have been hearing me pleading, literally pleading for political parties to make submissions. When I asked them to make submissions to the political parties bill, they did that in no time, very quickly. They met under the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue. They met under the Zambia Law Development Commission. When they were presenting the report to the Ministry of Justice, the various political parties were represented. And one of the representatives of the UPND, Beani, actually said to me, in the presence of everybody, he said, Minister, we want to caution you, we're giving you this report and the draft political parties bill. Don't you allow anyone to change what we've written, because this is our desire. And I promised them, I said, all the issues on which you have arrived at consensus, government has no reason whatsoever to change. But on the 4 issues on which you have not arrived at consensus in the political parties bill, surely somebody must come to a conclusion. We can't leave it hanging. We'll have to make a decision. And we'll take it to Parliament for Parliament to finally legislate, because the legislative function in Zambia vests in Parliament. Now, we've done this. And the question I would like to pose, Mr. Zulu, is what is this animal called dialogue? And I'm getting completely disillusioned about it, because we seem to be talking about dialogue as though it is one stand-alone issue, one event.
One special event.
One special event. For me, it is not one special event. For me, dialogue is a process. The fact that FDD, MMD, UPND, PF, PEP, and so on and so forth, all these political parties came together to discuss the political parties' bill. Wasn't that dialogue? Didn't they resolve? Didn't they agree? They agreed. That is dialogue for me.
So why are we failing on issues that matter, and issues that affect the public?
I don't think we have failed, because as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Zulu, I have made a roadmap which was approved by Cabinet, which I presented to Parliament, first on the Constitution. After I asked for submissions in February 2017, numerous submissions were sent to the Ministry of Justice from various players. And let me reiterate my commendations to all those people, all those organizations that took the trouble to make submissions. There are some that didn't make any submissions. And that caused worry for us in the government, that there are some players who have been making a lot of comments about the Constitution, but failed to seize the opportunity that was given to them to make submissions. They didn't make not even one submission.
You want to name them?
If you allow me to, I'm afraid I will. And unfortunately, it is the one who now are appearing to be becoming a stumbling
I know
block.
that the UPND, for instance, has said in today's mass newspaper that they want you to hold on to the constitutional roadmap until the dialogue process is concluded.
The UPND, remember, participated very actively in the National Constitution Conference, the NCC. You remember that? My political party didn't. When the NCC Constitution Amendment Bill was brought to Parliament in 2015, we in the Patriotic Front said we didn't agree with the amendment bill that was being brought, because we were following what was happening at the Mulungushi International Conference Center. We didn't agree with the amendment, and we refused in Parliament.
And that was a political stand?
Yes, that was a political stand. But UPND, who actually participated in the NCC from start to end, when the bill was brought to Parliament, what happened? Did they support it? No, they didn't. They literally refused to support a document to which they had appended a signature at Mulungushi.
But well, that shows.
What I'm trying to explain is that unless political parties are principled,
unless political parties become genuine, isn't it?
Unless political parties are consistent, we will continue to have this problem.
You were not consistent yourself.
We were very consistent.
I mean, you rejected to sit on the NCC.
Yes.
And you didn't want to be part of the bill.
We didn't agree with the process.
But you used the NCC document to come up with the constitution that we have now.
What was
part of the documents referred to?
We didn't. It's part of. That's good. The report.
Meaning you agreed with something.
The report of the NCC was just part of the many documents that the technical committee put together by President Michael Sata had to look at. It wasn't the only.
It was part of.
It was part of.
And you didn't agree with it?
No, we agreed with all the various submissions from the various constitutional review
commissions, including the one that culminated into the NCC.
Including the one that led into the NCC. And we allowed the tech committee to look at all these processes.
That's a document you rejected and made to fail in Parliament. And then you got it,
yes,
and referred to it.
Because we knew that...
It doesn't show consistency.
No, it is consistent. That document, together with all previous documents, had value in it. We didn't throw away the baby with the bathwater. We didn't. We threw away the bathwater, but returned the baby, and gave that document to the technical committee. Now, the point I'm trying to arrive at, Mr. Zulu, is that unless political parties are consistent and principled in approach and are genuine, we'll have a problem. Because, look, when I said to all people in Zambia, please make submissions, some political parties, such as my party, made submissions to Ministry of Justice. UPND didn't make any submission, not a single submission. They didn't. However, we said, look, this is a public document and it's supposed to outlive us. It's supposed to outlive the PF, it will outlive the UPND, to outlive all the political parties. We can't just rush it into Parliament. We decided that we are going to have a meeting of all parliamentarians away from Parliament. And the date I suggested was 12th of June. Now, some parliamentarians came to see me in the ministry. Those who don't run away from meeting ministers, they came to see me and they said, look, the 12th is a Tuesday and Parliament...
Those who recognize you?
Those who recognize government and are willing to talk to government. Not those who only want to benefit from government but do not want to recognize it and do not want to even engage. No. They came to see me. Some are opposition political players, some are independents, some are from the ruling party. They came to me and they said, Minister, the date you suggested, the 12th, is the day of opening of Parliament. Do you think we'll have enough time? And I said, look, my hope was that Parliament would not open on the 12th, but now I've heard that it's opening on the 12th, and I've spoken to Parliament. We are now going to move the dialogue for parliamentarians to the 10th and the 11th. Sunday and Monday, before Parliament resumes sitting on the 12th. After that, on the 15th and 16th, on the 13th rather, 13th, we'll give the report to Secretaries General of all political parties for them to look at. And they'll get that report and submit it to Summit of Presidents of all political parties. And that summit should take place 15th and 16th of June.
As per
now,
the,
isn't that
per ZCID schedule?
That is the government schedule. It is government that gave that schedule to ZCID. And my question is, isn't that dialogue?
Well, isn't their concern valid when they say, well, they want you to hold on until the issues are discussed at the dialogue table?
Which issues?
Constitution, of course. You mentioned Constitution as one of the issues.
What discussion will you have which is not the discussion that we want MPs to have, which we want Secretary Generals to have, which we want presidents to have? What other discussion is it? What do they want to talk about?
Are you creating
to talk about
two parallel dialogue processes?
We are not creating any parallel dialogue.
Because the Constitution has been identified as one of the issues for the dialogue process to be led by ZCID as it stands now.
Yes, so when you discuss the Constitution, what are you to discuss?
But you want parliamentarians, Secretary Generals and Presidents on one line to discuss the same issues as the ZCID process will do?
No, it is one and the same process. The meeting of parliamentarians will be facilitated by Ministry of Justice. The meeting of Secretaries General will be facilitated by ZCID. The Summit of Presidents will be facilitated by ZCID. What will happen in those processes? They will not just go there and stay mute and look at each other. They will go there and dialogue. And they will not go there and dialogue about the weather or the color of the paper on which the Constitution is printed. They will go and discuss the issues in the Constitution which have created challenges. They will talk about them as parliamentarians, they will talk about them as Secretaries General, and they will talk about them as presidents. Isn't that dialogue? What is dialogue? To go and say, let's sit down and start talking about what things should we talk about? No, we already know what things to talk about. Professor Gambari did a good job. He already identified for us 3 issues.
He identified the issues. You don't want him to chair anymore. You don't want the Commonwealth to chair the talks.
To chair which
TF
talks?
is insisting dialogue must be Zambian-led.
To chair which talks?
The dialogue process. I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, there's dialogue code.
Yes.
Commonwealth code for
that's why I'm asking.
Commonwealth-led initiative.
And
now,
what is this?
You have insisted.
What is
ZCID must chair the talks.
What is this animal code dialogue?
ZCID must chair the talks.
If what I've talked about, when we meet at Parliament, do we dialogue? Of course we do. We dialogue in Parliament. Now I'm saying parliamentarians will sit and dialogue on the Constitution. Secretaries General will sit and dialogue on the Constitution. Presidents will dialogue on the Constitution. And you're saying, no, we must have dialogue. What? To talk about what? About the Public Order Act? Yes. We received submissions. Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Justice are now wrapping up those submissions. And as soon as we've started the constitution process, we'll engage.
Electoral reforms?
The electoral reforms, the ECZ already made submissions to Ministry of Justice. Now, we can't crowd all these things together. We've decided let's handle the constitution first, then we'll move to the Public Order Act, then we'll go on to the electoral reforms. And the beauty, Mr. Zulu, is that we are not grouping in the dark. We've tried this, it has worked.
You've had your colleagues on the other side insisting that...
The Inter-Party Dialogue facilitated inter-party dialogue in 2010. Remember that? At Mulungushi. And all political party presidents were there, including President Levi Mwanawasa. I think it was 2007. Including President Levi Mwanawasa. He was there. That was facilitated by the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue. Recently, only last year, like I've tried to explain, only last year, Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue brought all political parties together and they came up with a brilliant report on the political parties bill. Today, we want to say, no, we don't want ZCID. Why don't we want it? And you're saying, Professor Gambari, trust. What trust? Why did they...
I mean, you should know, but well, you cannot really bring it down to trivialize it like it doesn't really matter. Your colleagues on the other side have spoken, and they insist they don't trust ZCID.
Very, very, very disturbing, to say the least. It's extremely disturbing to hear that ZCID is being looked upon with scorn by UPND.
They're probably singing from your hymn book. You ridiculed them way back.
We never ridiculed ZCID.
Do you remember expelling your MPs because they agreed with the NCC, which was a product of ZCID?
No. The NCC issue was totally different. And I want to say to you, I was amongst the greatest proponents of staying away from the NCC.
Which was a product of ZCID.
Which was a product of the meeting that was held, facilitated by ZCID. It wasn't a product of ZCID. It was a product of the meeting facilitated by ZCID. There's a difference.
And driven
ZCID is simply a platform. ZCID does not make decisions.
They held the meeting, agreed on that map, and when the product was hatched, you stayed away.
We stayed away because we didn't agree with it. But that does not mean that we didn't agree with the ZCID facilitating the meeting of all political players. There are two different things. People may not agree with my views which are being expressed on this platform. Does that mean that they will discard this platform? No. The platform is a neutral platform. My ideas are mine. ZCID is a platform of various political players. ZCID does not generate ideas. ZCID is simply a table on which all the different parties sit.
Political parties are part of the table, isn't it?
Yes, the political parties are the owners of the table. And for your information, the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue was established at the behest of UPND. I was a member of UPND then. 13 years ago, I was amongst the few who went to the Netherlands to go and meet the Netherlands Institute of Multi-Party Democracy, who facilitated the creation of Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue. UPND were in the forefront of creating that platform.
And when they say they don't trust, they know what they mean. They're talking about.
And in the 13 years of the existence of the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, the party that has held the chair of that institution the longest is UPND. They held the chairmanship of that center until December 2017, for goodness sake. Today, February, March of 2018, they say, no, we don't trust the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue.
Because you don't respect it as PA.
We respect it.
You don't respect it as government.
As government, last year I asked them, can you please process the political parties bill?
Well, you can single out that, but everybody knows that when ZCID wanted to visit Hakainde Ichilema in prison in Mukobeko, you denied them.
We did not deny any.
You allowed Commonwealth, and you did not respect the ZCID. They couldn't visit Mr. Ichilema.
To my knowledge, there is no person or organization that was denied permission to go and see anyone they wanted to see in prison, as long as they were in keeping with the regulations of the correctional facilities. Because you don't just go, like we had Hakainde going to Mwembeshi without an NRC. And then he cries foul, they didn't allow me entry. The regulations are that before you enter any correctional facility, you must identify yourself and you must deposit an identity card NRC. If you don't have it, you can't say, well, they have been stopped because opposition. That's not true.
Do you agree
have been stopped
that
because you didn't meet the necessary
failed to
requirements?
go to meet Mr. Hichilema, but Commonwealth did?
The Commonwealth and many other players went to meet whoever they wanted to meet, including Mr. Hagainde. They went. And the issue about the ZCID and the trust, let me make this very, very clear. The Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue has a very skeleton secretariat. And what we have said is that let the political players go around this table and decide who do they want to chair their meeting. I've told you for the parliamentarians, Minister of Justice will facilitate and will chair. For the Secretaries General, the Secretary Generals will have to agree on a person they want to chair that meeting. And if they want SADC, if they want Commonwealth, if they want church leader, if they want civil society organization leader, if they want academia, they themselves will have to agree that this is the one we want to chair this meeting.
So as far as you're concerned, as government and as Patriotic Front, ZCID has enough credibility, has enough capacity, can chair these talks?
It has enough credibility because it is a creation of all the political players in the country. Because to demean the credibility of a body to which all political parties belong is to demean the political parties themselves. And if these political parties feel that this institution lacks capacity, let us together agree on how to build capacity for that institution. Well, don't destroy it.
When we talk about trust, maybe by extension, they don't trust you.
For what reason would
they probably know you're going to go to the table, discuss, agree, and reject to implement whatever will be discussed. Simply ignore it.
What makes them think that if this dialogue, which they want, whatever animal it is, this dialogue is facilitated by somebody else, then will be compelled?
Maybe sanctions will be imposed on you.
By who?
Commonwealth.
Why?
If you fail to implement what you agree on.
No, look, sanctions are imposed on countries for failure to arrive at or to implement what has been resolved, not necessarily by who has facilitated the resolution. That's not the issue.
They will facilitate the resolutions, but then you agree and resolve. And if you refuse to resolve, they have hope, probably the opposition, that if you refuse to implement what you've resolved, then a foreign body can punish you.
No. There is no foreign body that can punish Zambia for being in keeping with...
Stop you from traveling?
We have systems in Zambia. And whether the Commonwealth is the one that sits at the table and facilitates the meetings or not, ultimately it is us Zambians who are going to implement what we agree. It is not any other person. None. It is us as Zambians. And Zambia is a sovereign state. 54 years of independence, Mr. Zulu. 54 years. Isn't it an insult to ourselves to say, in the whole country of the 16 million Zambians, we can't find one person who can come and chair a meeting?
Just like we couldn't find one person to bring the issues that Gambari brought to the table.
Gambari came here because we were saying, what are the issues? We were asking, bring the issues. Nobody was bringing them.
Because we couldn't find somebody to bring them.
And when the Commonwealth said, we want to get the views of the others, we said, go ahead and get them. And let's see if those issues are different from what we already have. Fortunately for us, those issues culminated into what we already thought were
Shouldn't
issues.
it worry you, Minister, that your colleagues don't have so much confidence in you? They don't believe you're going to implement what you're going to agree on. They believe you lack seriousness.
I think that
probably lack commitment.
You know, let the Zambians judge this. It is not them or us to judge. Let the Zambians judge and see who is serious. We have said, instead of going straight to Parliament with the amendment bill, we're going to engage the others so that we can agree before we go to Parliament. How do you discard a product, food, that you haven't tested? How? They haven't tested the process, and they're rejecting it and insisting that this meeting must be facilitated by a foreigner. So we should also remove Speaker of the National Assembly and put a foreigner there. Is that what we're saying? because Parliament was established by law to be an institution where Zambians will go and talk about issues and agree on issues. And if they don't trust anyone else except the Commonwealth, should it also follow, Mr. Zulu, that even the legislative function of Parliament must be taken away from Parliament? Does it follow?
I want you to assure the stakeholders, because some of the church members have equally said ZCID does not have the capacity. I want you to assure them that, look, this dialogue process is going to be successful. You are committed to fulfilling these things.
We are totally committed. And I've explained that in total good faith, even after they refused to make submissions, we have said, let's go and meet them again, so they can give us their views, so that we can come up with a constitution that will be generally accepted by all.
You've spoken so well about Zambia's independence, the 40 years that have been in existence, and that we cannot fail to find somebody to sit and mediate our issues among ourselves. Shouldn't you be speaking with the same passion about these issues that we're talking about? 50 years down the line after independence, we still are talking about the Constitution, Public Order Act, access to information bill, electoral reforms.
These issues, Mr. Zulu, are extremely dynamic. They're very dynamic. And because of the dynamism of society, you'll have to be amending these things to be in keeping with the changes in society. So I'm not ashamed at all that we are going through this process.
That every year we speak about the Constitution, that every year we speak about electoral reforms, that every year we still speak about access to information.
You know, we will continue to reform our laws to be in keeping with the changing times. There are some countries, such as the United States of America, which have a very rigid constitution. You can see the challenges they have. They also have their own challenges. They want to improve on gun laws, for instance, but they can't because their constitution is extremely rigid. Our constitution is not that rigid. And as for this particular matter, what we're doing now is to refine the constitution, because unfortunately, when the constitution bill was taken to Parliament in 2015, legal experts hadn't gone through it to check for inconsistencies and to check for lacuna in the constitution. That's why we are where we are now. And we're hoping that through this process we can come up with a product that is more consistent. A constitution that would be easy to read, a constitution that would be easy to interpret, not a constitution whose articles are interpreted 3-4 different ways by different players. That's not a good constitution.
Do you agree then that the constitution at that point was treated with, it was casual approach to it?
Do you remember how Mr. Speaker was ridiculed when UPND members of Parliament literally just brought the whole process at Parliament to a standstill, when they all converged in the center of the chamber, demanding that Mr. Speaker must allow the Constitution to be brought to Parliament without any amendment. And they were saying, this is what the people agreed on. We don't want the government to even remove a comma.
But your technocrats allowed such amazingly serious lacunas to go to Parliament.
What did you expect? When the loudest political party in this country, the UPND, were calling for trouble in Parliament, what did you expect? They were literally saying, bring that document as it is.
The public didn't expect you to surrender.
What could we have
surrender and take a seriously flawed document to the table of the House?
And that is the reason why now we are not going to surrender, simply because one political party wants to derail the process of government all the time. Whatever government comes up with, they want to oppose and take the opposite view. We asked them, bring submissions to the constitution refinement, they didn't. And now Mr. Jack Mwimbu is saying, we will not participate in this refinement process. We're giving you an opportunity to get involved, and you're saying, no, we don't want. Isn't that arrogance? That's arrogance of numbers. We ourselves have said, this is not for the Patriotic Front. This shall outlive the Patriotic Front. Now, the 58 of them want to hold the whole country at ransom. They want to say, we will not take part in the constitution refinement process because we have the 58 numbers, we're the ones who have the magic formula. We will not give them the 2/3. Who are they punishing? It is not PF. they are punishing the people. And the question to the people is, have we done anything to stop them from giving us their views? No. I have said we want to listen to the members of parliament, we want to listen to all political parties before we go to parliament, and they are saying no, we don't want. They have never ever wanted to take part in this process at all. Had it been that they had made submissions, Mr. Jack Mwimbo should have said, yes, we made submissions and these submissions have not been taken into account. They never made any submissions. And we have said we have not shut the door. We are opening the door again for you to come. Please come as brothers and sisters. Let's look at this constitution. It's ours together. It's for the Zambian people. And they're saying no, because Mr. Gambari has not come to facilitate dialogue. What is it that they want to talk about at that dialogue, which is not what we're talking about already? What is it? You know, the issue I've said many times is that if it is not the constitution refinement, if it is not the Public Order Act, if it is not electoral reform, can they tell us what other thing do they want to talk about? What other thing is it?
Access to Information Bill?
Access to Information Bill, I've said many times. The Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting are working on that, and as soon as we're done, we'll present it again through ZCID for all political parties to discuss.
Are you aware, Minister, that you've been working on that thing for 8 years now?
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Too long a period?
And I can even tell you that I am the one who pushed that, in case you've forgotten. The first appointment I had was Information Minister. And it was me who said, I'm starting this process. And I started.
And it has never finished?
It has not finished because I explained the last time I was here. You don't want to come up with the access to information law which will not be applied. You want to come up with an access to information law which the very first day when it is assented to by the president, people can use it. To do that, you need systems to be put in place.
Is this a very complicated law?
It is quite a complicated law.
It takes 10 years to make.
It's not an easy law.
It makes 10 years to enact.
It is not an easy law. It is a very complex law. But
more complex than any other law that we've done.
There are many other laws that are equally complex.
Not taken 10 years.
They have. Some of them have taken longer than that. There are some laws that have been on the drawing board for a long time. And this is one of them.
Lack of political will?
It's not a lack of political will. Had it been lack of political will, would have just put it aside.
But if you can talk about it for window dressing like you are now,
if you go to the
then it will never get enacted.
If you go to the Ministry of Information, you will find that the technocrats there and the technocrats in the Ministry of Justice are exchanging views on a daily basis on the information, access to information bill. They're working on it. And so the issue for me...
It's strange that people have been exchanging those views for 8 years. Isn't it?
It is.
365 days times 8.
Yes. Now, that bill is in the pipeline and it is coming. But that should not be the issue for dialogue. Is that what people are talking about? Is it what Mr. Hagainde is talking about?
It could be used as an example.
No, but
if you can't execute one law, maybe other laws still.
For the sake of the country, what is needed is for somebody to say to us, what other issues do they want to discuss in that special dialogue, which is not already contained in the programs of government? What is it? You heard Mr. Hagainde on Hard Talk talking about matters that he himself knows you can't discuss in Zambia because they are untrue. About us having refugees. Do we have any political refugees from Zambia? No. Is that what he wants Mr. Gambari to talk about? No. He didn't raise that with Mr. Gambari.
I want to ask you this question. Do you think ZCID should be reformed, probably given more power?
What power
should remain the way it is?
What power should they have?
To bind the resolutions, maybe?
The Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue is a club of political parties. It has no power to compel any political party to do or not to do whatever they want. No, they don't have that mandate.
So now you understand why people don't want to dialogue under ZCID? Because it's just a club?
But how else do you dialogue? How else do you dialogue? You don't go to court to dialogue, by the way. And the court has the power, the mandate to compel action. But you don't go there to dialogue. You dialogue.
Your colleagues want to secure enforcement. They don't want to dialogue for the sake of dialoguing.
Mr. Zulu,
for the sake of talking.
If we go through the process of agreeing on the constitution and it goes to parliament and is enacted, Are we then not bound by that constitution? We're bound by the constitution. If we bring the Public Order Act and amend it to suit the views of the people and it goes to Parliament, it is enacted, what is the next step? Isn't it enforcement? If we look at the electoral laws and pass them, what is the next stage? Isn't it enforcement? So what are they talking about? Is ZCID going to be the one that's going to tell us to enforce the electoral reform? Is it the Commonwealth that will tell us? No. They will not tell us. All they will do is to tell us these are the issues that we've heard from the people. Can you please discuss them? And we've said, yes, we agree. We shall discuss them. The challenge we have, Mr. Zulu, is to demean the stature of Zambia in the eyes of Zambians and also in the international eyes, that we, the 16 million people, cannot possibly sit around the table and discuss matters like of this nature. We have to bring somebody from Nigeria to come and be a chairman of a meeting. Are you sure? No. For us, we respect the skills that are available in Zambia. There are many skilled people. There are some people, Mr. Zulu, Zambians who have facilitated meetings at the UN. Are you sure they can't facilitate a meeting of political players?
Minister, when this process...
The issue is that my friends in the UPND are not even sure what they want to talk about. Because had they been sure...
They're not the only ones firing shots at ZCID.
Who else?
MMD.
MMD agreed that ZCID is the right platform.
Which MMD? The two MMDs, maybe.
I know of only one MMD, which is...
Never Mumba-led MMD,
which is on the board.
Mutati-led MMD.
For me, MMD is MMD, and when I read in the newspaper, MMD have agreed that ZCID is the right platform, I'm happy.
And when you read MMD says they don't agree?
I haven't read that. I haven't heard any MMD saying they don't agree with the Zambia Center.
There was an MMD which said...
I didn't see that, I'm afraid.
And then they wanted to sue because
I didn't see that.
ZCID has recognized one MMD over them.
That is their own internal issue about who is recognized and who is not recognized. For me, when I read that MMD have agreed, FDD have agreed, PEP have agreed, there is a forum for political parties that don't have presence in Parliament. They also agreed.
And you're happy with that? Now, after the roadmap, after this roadmap and the dialogue process, what do you expect to see? What do you hope to see as Minister of Justice?
What I hope to see is that political players in Zambia will be more consistent and more principled in their approach to governance issues. It is scandalous, to say the least, of political players to demand one thing on one hand and reject it on the other. To say, yes, we want to look at the Constitution, reform the Constitution. However, we don't want to take part in the process. Because if there is anything that people are not agreed with, they must go to the table and say, look, we don't agree with this one chairing. Instead, we want this one to chair. That's how dialogue is held. You can't just say, no, we don't agree. But you haven't even made an effort.
You want to see a less polarized nation?
Polarization, depending on how you define the word, is difficult to eliminate for as long as you're in plural politics. And I've been hearing people saying, let's harmonize. How do you harmonize UPND and PF?
Less violence?
True. Violence, I condemn in the strongest possible terms. And I don't think it's the first time you have heard me condemn
less
violence.
Hate speech?
That too. Less hate speech. And I think that we can reduce that the moment that people start to respect institutions of governance. Here we are, we have said, come, please, friends, let's talk. We don't want to bulldoze. And once people see that we're talking, even our cadres will start to respect each other. But if we are always at daggers drawn, the PF government says, let's have a meeting of parliamentarians. Mr. Jack Mwimbu says, no. It's only a 4 hours meeting. Look, Jack Mwimbu, if you come to me like the others have done and say, hey, have you taken note that
Minister,
the time is
running
short?
out of time. Thank you for coming to the program.
Was this dialogue?
Of course it was.
Yes, it is a process. So let's continue to dialogue.
Thank you for coming. You've been watching Sunday Interview, and our guest this evening was the Minister of Justice, Mr. Lubinda. I'll be back next week, same time. Pleasant viewing.